So we'll continue our lesson in chapter 13, the age of science and exploration. And we are doing section 1, the scientific revolution. And today it is lesson 3, which is in pages 360 to 361. Now go ahead, open your textbook or go to our Lodi USD website and launch Clever. And from Clever, Cengage Learning. And from Cengage Learning, log in your student account to access the World History online book. And once you are in the book, from the left side, it should be Unit 5, Chapter 13, Section 1, Lesson 3, and that is in pages 360 to 361. And today we'll be learning about the scientific method, or specifically the history of the scientific method, because I'm assuming that you already know this from your science class. Now, the chapter's essential question is, how did new ideas affect Europeans' views of the world? And as for this lesson's specific objective is to explain how Sir Francis Bacon and René Descartes helped advance a new approach to science in the 1600s. The scientific revolution changed the way scientists developed knowledge. So this lesson, just like what I said, will focus more on the works of Sir Francis Bacon and René Descartes, how they help advance a new approach to science with the development of scientific method. Today, it's a common understanding among people who know or understand how science works that scientists make observation and conduct experiments. But the truth is, it is surprising that the approach is relatively new. Before the 1600s, European scholars mainly referred to the ancient Greek or Roman writers or the Bible to decide what to believe. Now, the scientific revolution changed that approach. Scholars began to rely on observations, experiments, evidence, and reasoning in order to understand the natural world. Great men like Galileo, Copernicus, and Johannes Kepler had started a revolution of scientific thinking. Now, during this time, there are other notable scientists, but we will focus more on Sir Francis Bacon and René Descartes, who promoted the ideas that eventually led to an entirely new approach to science. This approach, called the scientific method, it is a logical procedure for developing and testing ideas. One of the key steps in the procedure is the forming of hypotheses. Now, who is Sir Francis Bacon? He is a philosopher, politician, and writer who had strong interest in science. He pioneered a different approach to science in 1620 in the book New Instrument. Bacon urged scientists to gather data by following specific steps. He also insisted on observation and experimentation as a key step to scientific accuracy, became the cornerstone of modern science. You are probably familiar with the scientific method. If not, you better ask your science teacher. So here's an overview of the scientific method. Step 1, observe and question. The scientist makes observation and gathers information on a subject. Step 2, hypothesize. The scientist proposes a hypothesis, an ideas or explanation that answer the questions. And we go to step 3, which is the experiment. The scientist designs and conducts an experiment to test the hypothesis. Step 4, they analyze data. The scientist records and carefully examines the data from the experiment. And step 5, evaluate and share results. The scientist judges whether the data do or do not support the hypothesis and publishes an article describing the experiment and results. And that is the scientific method. By the way, if I'm going too fast, this lesson is recorded and it is attached in our lesson in our Google Classroom, and you can always revisit it later. In your book, this painting is included, which portrays Galileo explaining his theory at the University of Padua in Italy. Now let's talk about another key personality who is important in the development of scientific rationalism that led to the scientific method. His name is René Descartes. Descartes is a French philosopher who shared Bacon's interest in science. But instead of emphasizing the experimentation, Descartes relied on logic and mathematics to learn about the world. He agreed with Bacon on the need for proof in answering questions. In fact, Descartes believed that everything should be doubted until it was proven by reason. Descartes is known in the philosophical world cogito ergo sum, meaning I think, therefore I am. What is the meaning of this? From this starting point, Descartes used mathematical reasoning and logic to establish other certainties. Descartes argued that in mathematics, the answers were always correct because you began with simple, probable principles that use logic and gradually build on them. So the idea of Bacon and Descartes became known as scientific rationalism. The school of thought, observation, experimentation, and mathematical reasoning replaced ancient wisdom and church teachings as the source for scientific knowledge. Scientific rationalism provided a procedure for establishing proofs for scientific theories. It laid a foundation for formulating theories on which other scientists could build. So the influence of scientific rationalism extended beyond science. For example, Bacon was active in politics and government, and he applied the principles of scientific rationalism to the government. He argued that the directions of government should be based on actual experience. So the bottom line, other writers argue that the scientific rationalism encouraged people to think for themselves. So people should be allowed to take more control of their own lives. This thinking undermined or challenged the authority of the Catholic Church and contributed to the development of a more democratic government like what we have today. Now let's go to the review and assess questions. The first one, reading check. According to Bacon and Descartes, what are the best ways to build knowledge? Number 2, evaluate. Why is it important to share the results of experiments? And number 3, make connections. How has the development of the scientific method affected your life? Answering this question should be easy because I believe you have done quite a bit of experiment yourself. If not here at Millswood, probably when you were in 6th grade. Go ahead, go back to our Google Classroom and answer the review and assess questions. Open the slide, it should be on the 3rd one. Don't forget to put your basic information, last name, first name, class period, and the date today. And there is just one key vocab, which is hypothesis. And don't forget the title of the lesson. And answer the questions and put your answers inside the box on the right side. Of course, if you are aiming for a full credit, on top of the correct answers, you need to write incomplete sentences. So when I say complete sentences, at least 3 to 4 sentences. And if the answers are correct, obviously you will get a full credit for that. So that is lesson 3 of section 1 of chapter 13 from unit 5, the scientific method. It has something to do with the scientific revolution, how science changed because of people like Rene Descartes and Sir Francis Bacon.